Guys, Bloomburrow is just over the horizon. I mean, I can already smell the new card smell from here. I hear the packs rustle in my daydreams. And I know you guys are just as excited as I am to get stuck into some limited play. So I thought that I would break down the 10 color pair creature archetypes, woo, that's a mouthful, that we can find in Bloomburrow today. First animals we're going to be looking at is our red-white mice. This is the red-white color pair we're going to find. So, with mice, they have a unique mechanic called Valiant, which we can see on these two cards here, Heartfire Hero and Ember Heart Challenger. So what Valiant is a mechanic where when the creature becomes the target of a spell, then something good will happen. So basically, mice get better the more love and attention that you show them. For example, Heartfight Hero will get a 1/1 counter if it becomes the target of a spell or ability, and Ember Heart Challenger, when it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control, exile the top card of your library, and until the end of the turn, you may play that card. So it's like fire, red's way of kind of card draw. So we know that we want to be targeting our creatures, but how do we do that? So some ways that we can target our creatures with some of the cards we see here. So Pilated Provisioner, this is a white bird that we can find in the set, so it's not a mouse. However, when this card enters, you put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control without flying. Your mice won't have flying, and birds' kind of theme in this set is to help out other creatures. If you play this card and then you target one of your mice, then you will trigger their Valiant ability. And then you've got Thistledown Players, which is a mouse bard, and then whenever Thistledown Players attacks, untap target non-land permanent, i.e. one of your Valiant creatures. So not only will you untap them, but then you will trigger their Valiant ability, and whatever that is will trigger. And then there's also ways to target your creatures with instances. So here we have Might of the Meek. So we've covered this card already. Target creature gains trample. So anytime you see target creature, then you know that this is going to trigger your Valiant ability. Same thing here with Rabid Gnaw. Target creature you control gets +1 until the end of the turn. It does damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So that main thing, that target, that's what we're looking for, okay? So not only are these cards going to have their own benefits, but they're also going to benefit your Valiant cards as well. And then other ways we can target the abilities is through enchantments, artifacts, all this stuff. This is the key with Valiant, okay? As long as it is targeted by any of your own cards, the abilities will trigger. So yeah, War Squeak is an enchantment aura, so as soon as you equip it, it's going to give the card +1/+1 in haste and make it unblockable, and then also trigger Valiant, okay? And then same thing, Short Bow, as soon as you equip, so that it does trigger off artifacts, weapons and stuff, so it's going to get +1/+1, Valiant's Reach, and then trigger the Valiant ability. So you get the idea. So basically you just want loads of ways to target your mice so that you can trigger their Valiant abilities. So that's how you want to build red-white mice. So next up we have the mice counterpart, the evil counterpart, the dark counterpart, shall we say, and that is our rats. But the rats aren't necessarily evil in Bloomburrow. So in Bloomburrow, in the lore, the rats are our knowledge keepers. You know, they take track of all of the history in Bloomburrow and store it away. So we can see in Bloomburrow, rats use a mechanic called Threshold, which is not a new mechanic. It has been in Magic the Gathering before, but the reason I think from a flavor standpoint that this fits the rats quite nicely is that I think the graveyard is a reflection on past history. So basically you need to build up past history, i.e. cards in your graveyard, in order to trigger their abilities. So Threshold allows for a benefit to happen as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So for example, Tidecaller Mentor, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard when you play him, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So you're going to be able to bounce something straight back. And then Shoreline Looter, same thing again, has Threshold. So as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you will not have to discard a card when you attack with him. That's a common theme you're going to see amongst the rats. So, okay, you're thinking, Jack, that's cool, but how am I going to fill my graveyard? Isn't that going to take really long to just keep killing my stuff? Well, funnily enough, there will be other ways to fill your graveyard. So one example will be Light Shell Duo. This is a rad order. When it enters, Surveil 2, Mind Whisker, Surveil 1. So you're sensing a theme here. Surveil is going to be one of your best ways to get cards into your graveyard. And if you don't know, Surveil is like Scry. So Scry is when you look at the top card of your deck and decide whether you want to keep it at the bottom or keep it on the top. And Surveil, you can decide to keep it at the top or put it in your graveyard. So a lot of the time, if you're surveilling with rats, you're probably just going to want to dump them in your graveyard unless it's a really good card that you need, or you've already got the 7 card threshold. And then some other ways that you could get some stuff into your graveyard is through discarding. So I've actually included these 2 cards here, which aren't rats, as you can see, for you keen-eyed people out there. But they are ways to get cards in your graveyard. So Kitsa here, you can tap Kitsa to draw a card, then discard a card. So basically, yeah, discarding is going to be nice for you to fill up your graveyard. And then Portent of Calamity, reveal the top X cards of your library. For each card type, you may exile a card of that type from among them. Put the rest into your graveyard. So the main relevant thing here is that you put the rest into your graveyard. And now there are a few other ways as well. So we've got plenty of ways to fill the graveyard. Okay, so another way is to mill. So you see Wix Patrol here. This is a rat card. And when it enters, you get to mill 3 cards, which essentially just means put in the top 3 cards of your deck into the graveyard straight away. There's no choices, no surveilling, you just boom, put them straight in. And then Rotten Mouth Viper, this is one of our calamity beasts, and I think it works really well with the rats because it allows you to sacrifice your own creatures, okay, for a benefit. So you sack your creatures and then fill your graveyard essentially, and then you get this lovely calamity beast. Okay, so that's all for rats. Let's go on to green white rabbits. Now our rabbits want to be using the go wide strategy, so you're going to see Offspring occur a lot in rabbit cards. Okay, and if you don't know, Offspring is you pay 2 mana, additional mana I should say, when you play the creature, and then you will get essentially a baby 1/1 token version copy of the card. So you're going to see that a lot. As you can see, Paw Patch Recruit and Warren Warleader, they both have Offspring, and then Warren Warleader also creates 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens when it attacks. And then you're going to find cards that benefit from having more creatures or having creatures enter your battlefield. For example, Seasoned Warren Guard. When it attacks, if you control a token, which is going to be quite likely if you're playing rabbits, it's going to have +2/+0 until the end of the turn. So it'll be a free 2/1 cost card, not too shabby. And then Harvest Right Host. Whenever Harvest Right Host or another rabbit you control enters, and I will bear this in mind, so this is whenever it enters. So this will trigger twice if you pay an Offspring. So it works very, very well with rabbits. Target creature you control gets +1, then draw a card if this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn. So essentially, if you've used a Offspring ability, then this is going to draw you a card. So now let's look at some ways that we can create some tokens that aren't Offspring. So we've got Caretaker's Talent. So the level 2 version of Caretaker's Talent here creates tokens that are a copy of other tokens. So it lets you duplicate. Okay, hop to it. You get to create 3 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens, and then for the common good, create X tokens that are copies of target tokens you control. So essentially, it's all about multiplying your tokens. Multiply. Okay, so there's going to be lots of ways to do that. So it looks like quite a fun strategy with rabbits, and as you expect from a flavor standpoint. So next, we're going to go into Raccoons, our green-red archetype. Now, Raccoons, these are the biggest of animals in terms of the 10 color pairs, and so Wizards have decided to make this kind of like the stompy type, which is fairly fitting. So what is unique about Raccoons? They have a mechanic called Expend. This is a new mechanic exclusive to Bloomburrow. So basically what Expend is that it rewards you for spending a certain amount of mana for the number that comes after the word Expend. So for example, in these cards you see Expend 4, so you will be rewarded as soon as you spend your 4th mana. Not every time you spend a 4th mana, but the first time you spend your 4th mana each turn. So for example, Bark Knuckle Boxer, expend 4. Whenever you expend 4, Bark Knuckle Boxer gains indestructible until the end of the turn. So as long as you've spent that 4 mana, you've now got an indestructible creature that turn. And then Bramble Guard Veteran. And can we just give a shout out to this bloody card? I mean, look at this damn card. One of my favorite arts in the set. Whenever you expend 4, Raccoons +1 and gain Vigilance, so they're not going to tap when they attack, which is quite nice. So you're going to see Expend come up in a few cards. Now, As you'd expect, there's also ways that you are going to be able to generate more mana so that you can get to these expend costs quicker. So Brazen Collector, whenever it attacks, add a red mana. Nice. And then Muir Trash Tactician, at the beginning of your first main phase, add a red or green for each raccoon. So, just as a little sub-theme, raccoon cards seem to have a bit of like a graveyard recycling mechanic as well. For example, on Peerless Recycling, you get to take some cards from your graveyard and put them in your hand, and then take out the trash. It deals some damage, and if you have a raccoon, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. So it's, you know, just basically recycling, you know, get rid of that, draw this, and take some stuff from the graveyard. Like, it seems like a general flavory theme of backup theme for the raccoons, which is quite cool. Okay, moving on to Squirrels. So Squirrels' unique mechanic for Bloomburrow is Forage. So you're going to see Forage on quite a few of their cards. So what is Forage? Forage is basically you get to exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sack a food to do a thing. So in this card's example, Fawnvolt Forager, Fawnvolt Forager, you get to forage to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. So nice little ramps. Then we've got Corpseberry Cultivator. Beginning of your turn, you may forage, and then whenever you do forage, you put 1/1 counter on Corpseberry Cultivator. So you can power it up by, you know, using your foods or exiling cards from your graveyard. So that's one thing that the squirrels like to do. So if squirrels like to forage for food, then you would expect cards to allow you to create food, which we have here. We've got Savor. Target creature gets -2/-2 on the end of the turn and create a food token. So it's a removal for a small thing, probably like a little offspring baby, and you get to create a food. And then Vine Reap Mentor, when it enters or dies, so you get this twice, create a food. So yeah, and this is going to help with our forage abilities, so they all work quite nice together. And then squirrels also love the graveyard. So here, Osteomancer Adept. Until the end of your turn, you may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging, in addition to paying their other costs. And if you cast a spell that way, that creature enters with a finality counter on it. Finality counters have come back as well. So if you don't know, finality counter is if that creature then dies, it will be exiled. You can't just keep resing it, okay? It's just like a balance thing. And then on Scavenger's Talent here, this enchantment, one of our class cards, you can see that this is creating a food token as well, which is nice for our forage. And then our level 3, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice 3 or other non-land permanents, and if you do, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter. So we've got a lots of resin going on as well. So next up we have birds. So birds in Bloomburrow are our little helpers, okay? They want to be helping everybody out, and we can see that through their mechanic. Flavorly, they grant bonuses to cards that aren't other birds. So in your limited kind of play, it's always going to be nice to add some birds in if you can. Obviously, it's going to be easier if the creature type that you're already playing shares some color combinations with birds, which is our blue-white. So if it's got blue or white in it, or if you want to build 3 color pairs, then, you know, slapping some birds in is always going to be quite nice, because they're all going to have flying as well. They're all going to be evasive. So we can see these benefits with these cards here. Plumcreed Mentor, or another creature you control with flying, a bird enters, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control with flying. Okay, so power up your non-birds. And then Seed Pod Squire, whenever it attacks, target creature you control without flying gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. So again, powering up your stuff that is not flying. Very nice. But birds are not all about just helping others, okay? So you do have some bird synergy cards as well if you want to build a bird heavy deck. So like Nightfisher here, whenever another non-token bird you control enters, create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. Cool. And Jackdaw Savior, whenever a Jackdaw Savior or another creature you control with flying dies, return another target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. This does care about creatures with flying. That's quite nice that it's just not all about helping other creatures, but it's kind of their unique little thing that they do as well. Now you can also see that birds are all about their protection. Okay, so Plumcreed Escort, this is a flash creature that when you play it, it gives something hexproof. So if you don't know, that protects it from being targeted by spells, which is nice, so you can protect yourself from some removal. And then Dazzling Denial here is a counter spell that is unique for birds, because if you control a bird, the controller has to pay 4 mana if they want to stop this spell from occurring. And you know, in limited, this is going to be quite a hefty price. Okay, next up we have our bats. Now, from an animal that is so strongly related to like vampires and stuff, you can expect that bats are all about the life drain, okay? So life drain, essentially you gaining life and your opponent losing life. So for example, Dark Star Augur, at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand, and then you lose life equal to its mana value, okay? So you're going to be losing life, but then you've got cards like Moonrise Cleric. Whenever it attacks, you're going to gain life, okay? So there's going to be lots of life manipulation. In the lore, the bats basically use life energy from the other creatures in order to use that power to help them defend Bloomburrow's valleys, homes. It's kind of like, because bats are the only nocturnal defenders of their villages, they have to basically, the other animals accept that they have to use some of their life source energy to do that, essentially. So that is represented flavorfully in the life drainage of the cards. So you can see here Zorlin as well. It does both, right? So it's when enters or attacks, you may pay 2 life, and then whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain 1 life. So again, we're seeing that life gain and life loss combo here. And then some of the other cards that you can see for the spells in Bloomburrow, like Stargaze, this is going to cost you life as well for a nice powerful ability. And then Nocturnal Hunger, you're going to destroy a target creature, so it's nice removal, but then if the gift wasn't promised, you lose 2 life. Okay, so you can choose whether you want to give the food or just take the life damage, which is going to be probably quite useful to you because it's going to allow you to trigger some of your other bats abilities, because we see here in these 2 cards that there's going to be cards that require you to have lost life. So at the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, this is Starseer Mentor, target opponent loses 3 life. And then Lunar Convocation, this is, by the way, Convocation, Lunar Convocation. This is one of my favorite cards from the set. Look at this art. Like the art of this is just incredible. Like, I want a full art piece of this. It's beautiful. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. And then it also allows you to pay life to draw a card, okay? And then at the beginning of your end step, if you gained and lost life this turn, create a 1/1 black creature token with flying. So it wants you to do both, and that's going to be a recurring theme. So cards are going to help you either lose life or gain life in the bat stuff. Okay, next up we have lizards. So let's start from a flavor standpoint, okay? The lizards in Bloomburrow, when they like heat, they like fire, that's how they energize. However, when they spend too much time in the heat, they get angsty, they get too excited, and then sometimes in battle this can turn to like bloodthirst, which is why you see that lizards like to benefit from dealing damage directly to your opponent. So for example, this card here, Interestant Vine Lasher. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage straight to your target opponent. Same thing with Steam Path Charger. When this creature dies, deal 1 damage to target player. So you're going to want to be doing cards like this. You're going to be wanting to play abilities like this to deal damage so you can trigger your other lizard's abilities, which you will see here in these 2 cards. Flame Cash Gecko. When it enters, if an opponent lost life this turn, you add a black or a red. So it's going to ramp you as long as you've, you know, tasted some blood, dealt some damage. A Cindering Cutthroat. It enters with a 1/1 counter on it if an opponent lost life this turn, which it probably has. So most of the time, you want to play this after you've triggered one of your lizard's abilities, and it's going to enter as a 4/3 for 3 mana, which is not bad in your limited environment. Okay, now there are other ways to deal damage to your opponent through sorceries as well. We can see in the set, Wildfire Howl. It deals 2 damage to each creature if the gift was promised. Instead, Wildfire Howl deals 1 damage to any target and 2 damage to each creature. So that deals 1 damage to any target is key, because you can just target your opponent. Okay, Playful Shove deals 1 damage to any target, again, and draw a card, so it replaces itself. So you can just play this just to deal that 1 damage and trigger your lizard's abilities. So that's enough about lizards. Next up, we have our otters. So otters are our spell slingy creature archetype, okay? They want to be slinging spells. So in the lore, otters like to store magical energy that they get from calamity beasts, and they do this by chasing the calamity beasts around and storing the elemental energy they get from there. Specifically, they have an affinity for lightning, okay? So these otter cards, they are wanting you to play non non-creature spells, okay? And they're going to benefit you for that. So you can see with these two cards, you may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, your otters and other blue animals get +1/+1 until the end of the turn. Whenever you see that, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, blah 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 blah, it's going to do something. So this card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So yeah. Next up, so then we've got cards with prowess that is going to be quite common to find in otter cards. So prowess is a mechanic that allows your creatures to power up as long as you're playing spells. So we see here in Storm Chaser's talent, the otter tokens it creates will have prowess, okay? And Stormcatch Mentor has prowess as well, and this card also reduces the costs of your spells, making it easier to sling those spells, trigger your prowess abilities, and then trigger your other abilities of your creatures that require you to cast spells, okay? So yeah, it's chaotic, it's fun. I think this is one of my favorite archetypes for Bloomburrow, for sure. There's also going to be cards for otters that make it easier for you to cast these non-creature spells. So Thunder Trap Trainer, when it enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library and you may reveal a non-creature non-land, so essentially like an instant or sorcery card, from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library. So you're searching for those spells to play, so you've always got something. And then Daring Wave Rider, you get to play a mana value 4 or less spell from your graveyard for free without paying its cost when it enters. And then you've got some sorcery and instant spells here with some otter arts that I wanted to include. Conduct Electricity, this is just a really powerful high damage removal spell for creatures. This is essentially going to kill pretty much anything you're going to find in limited, and it also deals 2 damage to a target creature token, which you're going to find lots of creature tokens in Bloomburrow. Otterball Antics, you create one of those prowess tokens we were talking about, and then if you've played this spell from your anywhere else that's not your hand, which it has flashback, so you can play this from your graveyard, then that otter token will be a 2/2, okay? Now, what I also wanted to say is that you could play this card with Daring Wave Rider again. So you play it twice, and then the 3rd time you could flashback it. You don't want to flashback it before that because then it will be exiled from your graveyard. So you could essentially trigger this card 3 times. So lots of otters, lots of prowess, and every time you cast it, it's all bonus in your stuff. And yeah, you get the picture. It's chaotic and fun. Okay, so my phone decided to overheat and not film the last of this video where I was covering the frogs. So this is attempt number 2. What do frogs want to do in this set? Frogs are bouncing, okay? So it's quite flavorful. We know frogs like to bounce and hop around, and so they're doing that. That's how they play. So they like to take advantage of enter the battlefield abilities and then bounce themselves back to your hand so you can replay those abilities. So we have a look at these 2 cards here. Splash Lasher, when this creature enters, tap up to 1 target creature, put a stun counter on it, okay? So again, enter the battlefield ability. Pawn Prophet, when Pawn Prophet enters, draw a card. So you can imagine you play these cards, you get their abilities, whether you're stunning or drawing, and then you bounce them back, and then you can do it again. And the idea is to just keep taking advantage of this, okay? So these are just 2 examples of some frogs with some enter the battlefield abilities. And then you would imagine now we have cards that help us do the bouncing. So Miss Breath Elder, at the beginning of your upkeep, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. And then if you do, put 1/1 counter on it. And then Clement, whenever Clement the Warrior War or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. So it's allowing you to repeat that process. Just keep bouncing, and keep replaying those enter the battlefield abilities, so on and so on. So yeah, it's very, very cool. Another idea I like to think of as well, because in Bloomburrow, the frogs are like seers. So I wasn't sure if the idea was because they're very, very cautious because they're always looking into the future. Is that symbolized by them bringing themselves back to your hand as like a cautionary kind of thing? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you think. So the bouncing theme doesn't stop there. If you even look at our instants and sorceries in the set with frogs in the artwork, it continues. Into the Flood Moor, return target creature an opponent controls to its own opponents, not your own. Splash Portal, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. If that creature is a bird, frog, otter, or rat, you draw a card, okay? So essentially, you exile your own card, so that it comes back into play and you get its enter the battlefield ability to trigger again. So yeah, that's pretty much it for frogs. They seem very, very cool. So guys, those are our 10 creature archetypes. We are all ready now to start playing some sealed, start playing some draft. I've already played some sealed myself in the pre-release, and I can tell you it's so much fun. So if you hadn't have an opportunity, I really recommend you play some limited. So the pre-release is probably over by now by the time you see this video, but drafts are still going to be going on. So I really, really recommend that you get some draft action going. And draft is not the only thing Bloomburrow has to offer. We have 4 brand new commander decks. So if you're wanting to pick up one of these commander decks but you are not sure which one is for you, then might I suggest that you check out my latest video on which of the Bloomburrow Precon face commanders is for you. I'm going to keep rolling out these Bloomburrow videos because I absolutely am in love with this set, and I also have some other videos on my channel for you to check out as well. Other than that, team, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.